thriving communities. So our investment in children clearly makes a difference long term. In my 6 years in the legislature, there have been two issues that have just simply dominated the discussion. The first one is tax policy. And whenever you talk about tax policy, it leads to a discussion of funding public education. And we all know where that discussion oftentimes goes. The second issue that is discussed is workforce development. And that's something that is near and dear to me. And we simply don't have enough workers in our state to fill the current number of jobs that we have. A study that was done by the state chamber in 2018 showed that there were 55,000 jobs in our state unfilled because of that lack of workforce. Tax policy, workforce development. How do we solve those problems? There's only one way, and that's to grow our state. And I would tell you the most important ingredient in growing our state is education. And education at all levels, starting with early childhood, K-12, our community colleges, our public universities, our state colleges, all play a role in building this workforce that can move us from thriving children to thriving families to thriving communities. Two things that a community or an area has to have to grow. You know what they are, but sometimes we need to remind ourselves of these things. If your communities are going to grow, they must meet and exceed the needs and wants in providing health care. You won't move your family to an area that you don't believe the health care needs of your children are going to be met. The second thing is education, and I would say the same thing. You won't move to a community or an area that does not meet your wants and needs in the area of education. Now, think about how those two things have changed. And I would tell you, we have significant changing expectations in those areas. The expectations that my parents had when they sent me off to school in Gothenburg is certainly different than the expectations of my children have for my grandchildren that are in those positions now. And we have wants and needs, but then there are these unexplained expectations. We have expectations for before school programs. We have expectations for after school programs. We have expectations of meeting the needs of our children with disabilities. And now we clearly have needs in the early learning capabilities and what we're looking at there. You're right on the mark looking at this. In 2017, the Buffett Early Childhood Institute did a survey of those people providing early childhood education. And many times it got called preschool at that point in time. And what did that survey point out? It pointed out that the providers were struggling from low pay. They were struggling from not having medical insurance or any health care provided to them. They were struggling from uneven preparation. And then, of course, they were struggling from stress. So I would tell you, we are trusting what many of us would say are our most important assets, our little kids, to people that are struggling with low pay, uneven preparation, no medical coverage, and stress. I've often told people we wouldn't trust an athlete to a public university whose coach was struggling with low pay, uneven preparation, no medical coverage, and stress. We wouldn't do that, but we do it with our most important asset. So that's why I challenge you, and that's why I'm so excited that you're here tonight. And the question is, what can you do to make a difference? What can Keith County do in the areas that you've talked about to make a difference? And I think there's a number of things you can do. And you don't have to build the wheel from the beginning. There are areas and communities that are facing this across our state and across our nation that are carving out new paths. But what does it take to get started? I would tell you that it's interesting to me that human beings only react in one of three ways when faced with adversity or with tough choices and tough decisions. Only three ways. They quit, they blame, or they step up and accept the responsibility to work together for positive change. And that's our challenge. You wouldn't have signed up to be on this call tonight if you were going to quit. And we know that blame takes us nowhere. So the only option is to step up and accept the responsibility of moving this whole thing forward. And what I would remind you again is that education is the key to growing our state. And if you don't start it right, you don't get a second chance. Mary started out by saying, you were asked to dream. And I would challenge you to not only dream, but dream big. Dream bigger than you can even imagine. But then I would challenge you that you have to do something else besides dream. Our world is full of dreamers and achievers. And you know what the difference is? Action. Dreamers can just dream, but achievers take those dreams and turn those dreams into today and tomorrow's realities. So I challenge you not to just dream big, but be the action heroes that can take you to a level of success that you can't imagine. So I'm pleased to be here this evening. Mary said 5 minutes. I think I've stayed inside of that, even though these are topics that I could talk a lot longer about. But congratulations, and if I can be of further assistance, I'm always happy to make my services available. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Senator Williams. We appreciate you taking the time to be here, and you hit the nail on the head with everything that you said. Yes, round of applause on mute for Senator Williams. So thank you so much, and I'll share some updates with you through this process.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. As we continue to move forward, just a little housekeeping issue. We do have a lot of us on this call tonight, right? We're at 31 participants, which is amazing. All 31 of you, we want your voices heard to be included in that discussion. And so we're going to utilize the chat box, which Nicole can share some specifics also as we move through different areas of the agenda. But if you have questions, want us to call on you directly, or have comments that you're not able to verbalize, throw those in the chat box, and we will be sure to track those and call on you if we need to. So Nicole, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mary. And I feel like we got a pep talk from Senator Williams. That was a really great opening, and I know I'm really excited for the conversation tonight. So we're going to spend some time, we heard Senator Williams really talk about kind of the importance from, a statewide perspective and how, thriving children, help build, thriving families, and then in turn, that's thriving communities. There are a lot of things happening in the early childhood arena here in Keith County. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time this evening helping you all understand kind of what's in place right now, and just really do some asset mapping up front so that you're all familiar with efforts that are underway. So right now I'm going to introduce Pam Abbott. to kind of give an update on the C4K efforts that are happening in Keith County.
Thank you, Mary. Nicole. As she said, I'm current interim chair for the C4K here in Keith County, and I'll talk to you more about what that is in just a second. I'm also a retired teacher, if there is such a thing, and I'm a child and a community advocate. I have some ongoing parental experience, and I was certainly once a child, so as all of you are, so I think we all have some basis of experience here. I'm not a early childhood expert, and I want to put that out right there. I leave that to the trained professionals, but I do understand that the value and place for the systems work in everything we do is paramount. And of course, my dream for Keith County is to be a premier brain and family friendly community within our state for all the reasons that Senator Williams stated so well earlier. I'm going to share some things here with you. Oops, could I get permission to share, please? Mary, I think you have to give that to me.
Is it not? It should be there automatically, everybody.
It says that I'm disabled on screen. You've disabled the attendee screen sharing.
Of course I did. I'll just make you co-host. How about that?
Okay.
That work?
That worked.
Fantastic. Sorry about that.
No problem. All right. So back to what is Communities for Kids, or C4K. I think this context is really important to everyone to understand some of the initiatives that are currently in place here in Keith County. Communities for Kids is an initiative that we're very fortunate to participate in through the support of the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. C4K encourages and supports partnerships with all community stakeholders, both public and private, to support and coordinate the planning for access to high quality early care and education for kids that are age birth to age 8. All of these partnerships work together to elevate our existing efforts, and we do have those, to be brain and family friendly in our community. So that said, it can be a challenge to define the child well-being ecosystem. Just take a look at this piece. While this is not Keith County specific ecosystem map, you get the general idea of how our work cross-pollinates in most, if not all, areas. If we just focus in on this area of early childhood here, it's kind of a hub and a spoke model with all of the kinds of pieces of work that is being done there. We can see all those wraparound services that are both common and some are unique to our area. Now, here's a general idea of the stakeholders in Keith County in our area. It's certainly not inclusive, it is general, but I think there's a really great representation of people here representing the attendance tonight, and I thank you for doing that. This is all the kinds of work that a community does that supports early childhood and families. So why are we here tonight? Well, we're here, like Nicole said, we're here to continue building on what's strong in our community regarding the early childhood efforts. I've started a list of assets, and I want you to think about these things using your chat box. Mary, if you would, I just want to remind us to make sure we save that chat box so we can do an official asset map, post meeting. But yeah. I want to ask you the question, what great things are already in place for young children and their families here in Keith County? I've listed a few on this page here, and I'm going to get out, and I can certainly add to this of my slide presentation as you list things in the chat box. But if somebody wants to just tell me what's in that chat box, I would be glad to continue adding to those things. I'm going to also turn this over at the moment. Is Kayla Schmittler attending? I didn't see her earlier. She may have just been a little late. Kayla, are you?
Yes, I got off work late. Sorry.
I knew exactly what was going on when I didn't see your name, so no problem. I asked Kayla to begin highlighting some of the items that the providers have listed, and while she's naming those, I want you to just build on some things in your mind that are happening in Keith County, and they can include services, childcare, enrichment opportunities, family-centered community activities, recreation, health, wellness, all those kinds of things, as you can see in some of the samples here. But Kayla, go ahead and we'll see if I've captured as many as the providers have done.
Hi, I'm Kayla Schmittler. When Pam asked me to think of some things that we had thought of was rooting relationship, C4K, the library, which the new library is absolutely amazing. They have provided an awesome story time every Tuesday at 10 o'clock for the kids, which my own childcare attends, and they absolutely just love it. Then we have the outdoor and indoor pool, the rec center, the movie theater, which usually in the summers they have the kids matinees, which are very beneficial to keep kids occupied. All the many city parks, the bike path, which is another very useful tool, especially when you have a bunch of energized children that you need just like go someplace safe and let them just like run. Another place my childcare likes to go up and utilize the splash pad, which will be soon. And then us childcares have a really strong network about communicating and planning trainings and working together, which we find very positive. And then ESU 16, public in the schools. We have 13 licensed providers, which soon there'll actually be 14. We have another lady who is actually working on getting licensed, so she will be licensed within the week. Special education teachers, speech and language arts teachers. Sorry, I can't read them on my phone. The community block party, circle of security. I would even add, even just this past weekend, the rendezvous was an awesome thing. My children personally loved the rendezvous.
What about some other things? I'm not seeing that chat box, but are there some other things we can list here quickly?
Yeah, Pam, there's so in the chat box, we've got some great responses. So we've got the hospital, pediatrics, neighborhood parks, museums, and lake. Cheryl has also stated KIKC, and I apologize, I don't know what that stands for. If Mary or someone wants to chime in on that, just from my perspective, and then also Try It Out Thursdays. We have the sports complex and 4-H and dance studios and gymnastics. Community Connect Day. Organized kids sports, Boys and Girl Scouts, and again, 4-H comes up. The Early Development Network, faith-based education with the church schools and Bible schools, etc. Head Start is also being mentioned. And Michelle is also stating that awareness by a significant number of leaders from cross sections of the community represented, talking about the value of early childhood and the beginning of understanding that daycare and quality childcare are not necessarily synonymous. We are talking as a community about our kids and family needs. Angela has also commented on Kids Oasis. So thanks everyone for your great participation in the chat box.
That's great, thank you. We'll continue to build on those things as we continue through the process. Our C4K specifically is continuing to build upon those strengths, and we're I'm going to share this with you a little bit here. We're tuck pointing some designated areas of need, both in quality and capacity in our area that we're currently aware of. Those needs right now are infant care, 3-year-old care. Some of you parents can really probably relate to this. Non-traditional hour care for children. And then having at least 1 or 2 qualified substitutes available for our providers. We don't think about that, but imagine if you did not have PTO at work. That's a critical piece. We really want to start to have some conversations, hard conversations about what we can do to support early child care here in Keith County. So our local goals for early childhood efforts within our current fiscal year work here in Keith County include short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals to address those needs and to drive some change that is well needed as well. In February of 2019, we had providers here in Keith County participate in a facilitation process that was called a gallery walk. And the outcome of that evening provided a list of needs and priorities for early childhood, and some of those items were early and easy wins that were addressed relatively quickly. But some of those are going to require some long-term planning and further conversations with broader input from additional community stakeholders like yourself. So my point is that the 2019 Providers Gallery Walk and that current data that we have from our data study through the Nebraska Community Foundation and the Keith County Foundation Fund is driving our C4K's goals. The outline, what we plan for our 2 goals, again, is increasing quality and increasing capacity with some of these new initiatives. Some of the new things that we have going on coming in late winter, starting January, February, and early spring of 2021 are an 8-week course coupled with a business plan from Mid-Plains Community College. Mary Pierce has been instrumental in helping with that, as well as the McCook area as well. And that will help increase workforce and it's going to, and capacity, and it's going to target care needs that I identified earlier. We hope and intend that these new providers are going to create a newly expanded cohort for our sister initiative rooted in relationships as well. And that would continue to strengthen that provider network along that way as well. That plan includes up to 5 $400 scholarships and up to 5 $5,000 business startup grants for any new providers that are interested in starting in those specific areas of need. Some of our additional incentives that we have on our request for proposal for funding and that we're going forward with is licensed infant care providers would receive an additional $250 stipend a month for up to a year. And non-traditional businesses would receive an additional stipend as well for 12 months for up to a year. We have up to 2 individuals that will be offering that as well too. The next part of that would be to stipends for 2 individuals to complete an associate's degree or higher in early childhood education, and that can include someone who's currently working on that as well, and that provides care in Keith County, and that will be up to $2,000 for that stipend. And then of course, the need for the substitute scholarship. I already mentioned that PTO concept earlier. We want to do a $400 stipend for the completion of that Jumpstart course that gives a little bit of a theory background, that 8-week course for quality childcare. And then we're going to pay an additional $5 an hour stipend in addition to what the providers already pay for up to 10 days for each provider in Keith County per year. So our early childhood coordinator is a piece that we're incredibly excited with and moving forward with. We are just going to be posting the job description in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll be taking applications now through October 7th. And if you want more information about that, please reach out to Jerry Thomas or Joe Brown or Cheryl Roche or Ken Snyder. They've been working actively on that piece, and that committee has put in a lot of work on it. It's going to be really, that early childhood coordinator is going to help support and facilitate these scholarships and the accountability piece with it. But that's only part of that. She or he will be critical to having locally dedicated service that can help drive and communicate and plan with the current providers and the early childhood system here in Keith County. Our work plan for the current fiscal year is the most robust we've had to date, I have to say. And in my opinion, we're really long overdue for this community coordinator here. And finally, our long-term plan for a feasibility study impact plan for young children and families will study our dreams and help us create a detailed roadmap for getting there so we can put those feet on the ground like Senator Williams spoke earlier and take some action on these pieces. That real change does begin with a vision. So thank you for being here. We look forward to hearing more from you with your voices and your ideas. And in the words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg this last week, real change, enduring and sustainable change happens one step at a time. And we think we're putting those feet forward. So thanks for being here. Nicole, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Pam, for that great update. We are going to hear from more of you this evening on updates that are happening in the early childhood development arena in Keith County. And so I have a list of folks that Mary has reached out to and has asked to provide an update. So I'm just going to kind of go through the list and calling on you as they're listed in my documents. So the first one, Cheryl Roche, I think I saw you earlier. Are you still with us? And would you provide an update, please?
Hi, Nicole and everyone. Yes, I'm Cheryl Roche, and thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes. I won't take up very much of your time. I just have to first say that this work really warms my heart because I have been an early childhood educator for over, close to 40 years now. So this just really makes me happy to see so many people involved and interested in early childhood. And I really like what Michelle had to say about, we don't call it babysitting anymore. We don't call it really even daycare because the day will take care of itself. It's really about high quality education and care for our youngest citizens in our country. I am what they call the early childhood coordinator for our area. I'm the High Plains Early Learning Connection Coordinator. And that is a system with the Department of Education, with NDE. There are 7 of us in the state. We are broken into 7 regions. And it's an integrated system of early childhood professional development. And really what that means is that I provide education, resources, programs to support the professional development of anyone in early childhood. And we define early childhood as birth through age 8. So I work with parents, I work with in-home providers, center providers, directors, second grade teachers, kindergarten teachers. I work with superintendents and principals, really to help develop the skills and provide the resources to help support early childhood and high quality early childhood programs. I might have left out parents, but I can do a lot with parents as well. We do things such as program quality assessments, strategic planning with higher education, and my what I'm doing right now is community engagement and outreach. So that's really in a nutshell what I do. And I think that's about it, Nicole. I think unless somebody has a question.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cheryl, for that update. Let's go to Jackie Anderson next, please.
Well, it's a hard act to follow when I'm asked to follow Cheryl Roche. She and I have worked pretty closely together for quite some time. I'm also a founding member of the Rooted in Relationship Board, and that's where I've come to know many of the people that are sitting in on this meeting tonight. I'm the Student Services Director at Ogallala Public School, and through that I also work with special education and with general education. And so some of the things that we've seen come and go, and not go, but come and be an active part, we participated in some pyramid training, and it was also through Heather Gill, who had done some training with our kindergarten staff, with some of the preschools in the area, and then she's gone on to do some of that training with our early childhood providers, our daycare providers. And so we feel like it follows the guidelines of positive discipline and encouragement rather than stop, don't quit. So I'm really passionate about early opportunities for kids. Again, babies don't wait. We have to help them now. And the better our education and training for our providers and for our parents is, the better outcomes we have long term. And that means all the way through school. Those are the kids that we see thrive, is when they have those great opportunities in early childhood. So that's kind of what my role is, and that's kind of how I have become embedded in this work.
Great, thank you, Jackie. All right, how about Heather Orth?
I am coming to you from the country, so I'm hopeful my internet connection is okay for you to hear. I am a teacher in Ogallala Public Schools. I work in the Title I department. We're available to help students who are struggling to learn or to practice enough on their reading and math skills. We had some new legislation passed that affects us in Nebraska. Kindergarten through third grade now has what's called an individual reading improvement plan for kindergarten through third graders. And I would say that last year was our first year of implementation across the state with that. We've learned a lot. We know that before this even, that if we get kids early with exposure to important things, vocabulary, learning about sounds, learning about having books read to them, learning about their environment, that they are far more likely to be very successful coming into school. I actually am pretty pleased to say that in general, even with the changes that happened in March with being unable to meet in school, that as a whole, our school actually probably has at least a couple fewer kids that need a plan for needing that early reading support. And there's some other factors that play into that, but certainly the sooner kids are exposed and have those experiences, the better they're going to be. Their trajectories can be changed much more quickly. Say at the kindergarten, first, second grade level, we're talking I can do 30 minutes of intervention. What takes me 30 minutes to intervene at kindergarten, first or second grade will eventually take me 2 hours in the upper grades. And I can tell you that those upper grades start getting hit with content, and it's far better if we can intervene sooner and get them on track so that they are on grade level and ready to roll. So I've also worked on the family block party and have been to Rotary with a couple of the other title teachers to talk about kind of the 7 days, 7 ways early childhood things that can support kids learning from birth on. So that's kind of my story.
All right, thank you, Heather, for that great update. And we have, Ken is using the chat box to ask a question after Jackie gave an update. He had asked, what is pyramid training? And Jackie's right on the ball with responding to that question. And just for everyone who maybe can't see the chat, Jackie has said that it's the early childhood piece tied to the positive behavior interventions and systems in place at school. And I don't know, Jackie, if you want to say any more about pyramid training, or if that's, are we good there? Maybe if Ken or Jackie have anything else to ask or say.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is that it has radically changed how we're looking at behavior in the school system. And certainly it's been dramatic changes in the ways kids are able to manage their own behavior when they come into the school building and as they start on that correct path of education. It makes them ready to learn. How's that?
Great. Thank you, Jackie. Next up, Michelle Kimberly Rhodes. Would you provide us an update, please?
Well, I guess the last 4 years as an early childhood education specialist for the district, which means it's not the kind of teaching job that I've had the last 25 years. My students are all birth to age 5. Many of them I serve in their homes, and I am like a coach for parents. A lot of times for children that are birth to age 3, typically, their parents are their teachers. And so we have a significant number of parents who maybe lack some parenting skills, and so I try to help with some of those kinds of things. I also work with all of the preschools within our community, both St. Luke's and St. Paul's, which currently we don't have any children in either one of those preschools that I am serving, but I have the last couple of years. This is just, we have kind of a hiatus at the moment. And I also spend a lot of time up at Head Start. All of the students that I serve are have been identified as developmentally delayed. So hopefully with early intervention, we're able to get in there early and try to close the gap, if not completely eradicate whatever the delays might be. They range a wide range of things. One of the things that seems like it's really prevalent more and more is kids aren't being spoken to. They don't have conversations. They aren't having that kind of serve and return conversations with language. And so we have kids that literally are not able to talk because no one has interacted. You can't really have a serve and return conversation with the television or an iPad, iPhone, whatever. So that is one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about. I like the idea that for the last couple of years, Rooted in Relationships and the C4K committee and all of those kinds of entities have really started to grow the awareness of the fact that Ogallala really does need to be talking about these issues. It's going to get noisy. My football player's son is hopping in the car. So I like the idea of we're increasing the awareness. I think my job would be a little bit easier if we could have more coordinated efforts, particularly among the preschool teachers. I work with all of them, but it seems like sometimes because of different regulations and things, it just seems like we could be a little more streamlined, even though we come from different agencies. Me with the public school, Head Start has their own kind of way of doing things, which we're never going to totally change that. But I think we could make some things a little more streamlined, which would benefit kids. I do think that there is a need for added spots for preschools. I know we're not totally talking just about preschool, but I do think that we have a lot of kids that are hitting kindergarten that have never had a preschool experience. You know, there's a variety of reasons why that happens, but I don't think we have the space for every child in this community that could benefit from that. And even before that, I guess I really feel like we have a lot of kids that start school already behind. Heather talked about, you know, it's the sooner you get in there in kindergarten, first grade with title services, the faster the turnaround rate. I think that's the same thing with what I'm working with too. The sooner the better. I know everything always boils down to dollars and cents. But I really believe with early childhood education and everything that encompasses, we either pay now as a community or we're going to pay later. I like the way Senator Williams talked about assets. And I think if we could all kind of get in the frame of thinking about kids in terms of being asset-based instead of not in such a positive light. I think that could be huge. That's not easily done. I know, I don't know, somebody here tonight talked about thriving, that might have been Miss Senator Williams also, education and thriving families. Sometimes in my job, it's hard to remember that there are families that are not struggling and that there are kids that are not struggling, because my job is those that struggle. And for many of these kids and many of the families that I'm serving, the struggles are big. And they're very real for lots of these families. And, you know, housing is a piece of that. So I just commend this group for coming together and looking at how we can start to bridge some of these gaps, because I think for a long time, people didn't think that some of these needs and things are here in Ogallala. Anybody that wants to know specifics and how big some of the family struggles are, I'll be glad to share with you, because I've seen it firsthand, very personally, in some of these families' homes that I have been in the last 4 years. It is here. Things that I didn't think could happen are here. So I guess I don't know what else to say. I hope that kind of explains a little bit about what I do. It's very non-traditional, nothing like what I've done the previous, 20 years of my education career.
All right, thank you for that. Next we're going to go to Kayla Schmittler. We heard a little bit from her early on the beginning of our asset mapping, but she's going to provide us another update.
Hi, I'm Kayla Schmittler. I have an in-home childcare here in Ogallala since 2012. So I'm part of Rooting Relationships. I just graduated my 3-year program in June. I'm also a Step Up to Quality participant, which is they rate childcares so it's easier for parents to go on there and figure out what trainings and different things for parents to realize like their child goes to good quality daycare. I'm also, through Step Up to Quality, I received a scholarship to go get my early childhood associates, which I am currently working on for my 2nd year. Also with Step Up, I wrote and used my own curriculum that I use with my children, which is pretty exciting. Like right now we are working on learning about vets. So we recreated my house center and it's all about vets. We got x-rays and we have kennels and we have all the tools so the kids can experiment with that. So we always like to change up along with all the learning aspects. But as some other people say, the spots are not available in Ogallala for childcare at all, especially infants. I've gotten 3 calls just today for infants, and that's not till next summer, and nobody has room. So it's hard, because you want to take in all these kids and you can't. So that's difficult. And I hope that changes. But I want to give a shout out to like all my childcare group. All of us, like every single provider in Ogallala, we get together. Now it's more just like a message. But we communicate, we have the same policies, we connect and we problem solve. And if a parent, has a question, we figure it out together. And I think that's really awesome for our community. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kayla. How about Sydney Stevens next?
Hi, so I'm Sydney Stevens. I am the kindergarten teacher at St. Luke's Catholic School. This is my first full year. I started back in January and graduated the previous December, so I'm fairly new at actually teaching. But I do have an endorsement in early childhood education, and so in my classroom and in I think most kindergarten classrooms, we work on those developmental skills that those students need to succeed throughout their whole career. So we work on social and emotional development, such as through PBIS, positive behavior interventions, and through social skills, so developing vocabulary and social cues and taking turns and such. then we also work on their physical with fine motor skills activities. And then obviously their academics. So as soon as we can identify their assets, we can build on those. And if they have certain weaknesses, we can sure work on those to improve them. So I think that's about all I have.
All right, Sydney, thank you for that update, and all of you for providing updates as to kind of services provided, your organizational updates. That's all really good, helpful information as we continue to talk about early childhood efforts here in Keith County. So this next part of our agenda is really you to kind of, Senator Williams also said it, to dream big. And we will connect the action part to this in session 2. So again, we want to just kind of dream big. So kind of thinking out 5 years, what's different in Keith County when it comes to early childhood development? And feel free at this time if you want to chat in the box, or if you want to unmute yourself and also share verbally, please feel free to do that. As you're talking, I'm going to be kind of taking some notes and kind of just jotting down what you see is what looks and feels different in 5 years when it comes to early childhood development in Keith County. I see in the chat box, much better awareness. So do you want to elaborate on that a little bit more? Sorry, I think I cut you off there.
I think this is Joe Brown, and I think it's just because organizations and individuals within the community are coming together and working together and actually having really serious open conversations about what is necessary to improve our early childhood program. And I think we're so excited to have people like Kayla Schmittler as one of our early childhood providers and being a leader among those providers. I think sometimes we have excellent providers and staff members, but they don't always take that step to be those positive leaders. And individuals like Kayla, who are willing to talk to providers, like Sydney, who she is willing to get involved with being a brand new teacher and doing things like that. It's just that awareness for everybody and across a broad spectrum of ages too, where we have those young individuals and then people who have been in education for a long time, been parents or grandparents. It's just wonderful how everybody can work together. So I think that awareness in Keith County is really what's helping drive us forward.
Great, thank you, Joe, for that. So yeah, much better awareness, and again, this is kind of you thinking of your ideal state here in Keith County 5 years out when it comes to early childhood. So it's much better awareness and those conversations, serious conversations happening. We also have in the chat box the importance of early childhood development and also knowledge of brain development. And as I share these out, again, feel free to unmute yourself, and if you want to elaborate more on that, feel free to do so this evening. Also, Ken has stated employers that subsidize child care for employees. So that's a great one. Also, we've got Lori who's saying, I would like more people to be aware of the importance of early child development. I would love to see a children's museum and more activities that will help kids to develop skills. Michelle says, in 5 years, I would like to see ample openings in preschools to accommodate all children with our community that are ages 3 to 4. Thanks, Michelle. Very specific dream, very achievable dream to work on as a county. We've got Jerry and Joe who have said a center of excellence for early childhood development and education. We've got Michelle saying, also in 3 years, adequate quality infant care to meet the needs of our community. And then we also have community support for expanded hours of childcare. Jana, ample space for infants. Without that, families won't be coming to Ogallala and to Keith County. Again, just want to invite you to open up your microphone and share any additional.
I have a question, Nicole. For those who said, you know, an increase in childcare for infants or increasing that quality, what are some specifics? What does that look like? Does that mean more in-home centers? What does that care look like in your eyes if you're too big? Anybody want to share? Do I need to call in somebody?
I'll address that a little bit, Mary, and I think Pam, if you look at what she wrote in the chat, exploring a cooperative that elevates our providers and increase pay and or benefits. We've had conversations with some of our providers about, you know, how do we expand without more in-home providers? You know, there's a lot that in-home providers have to go through to become licensed. Kayla can definitely speak to that. But the issue with a center, there are some communities that have center, is providing a wage for the individuals that work there that really is enough for them to work outside of the home. And I think that is the one thing that we'd really have to look at is how could we go about developing a center that is going to provide a working wage for an individual to not have a daycare in their home, or if they want to be in childcare, to make a living with doing that. And I think that has been a big issue for us. So if anybody out there has ideas on how we can do that, I think that would be wonderful. And I'd just like to say something in regard to what Kimberly Rhodes had talked about, is the number of families that she sees and how they need support and how they need help. That's where really this comes into really making Keith County strong, because if you look at the number of families, and as that number, when it gets into the school district and it kind of translates into your percentage of free and reduced lunch, we need to stop the growth in that number. We need to figure out what we can do to help families move to Ogallala, have a sustainable wage so that they can raise their family, whether they have a family of 3 or a family of 6. And those families, if they have what is necessary in their life, that also means, kind of like Senator Williams says, if you have thriving families, you'll have thriving children. So it's both ways. Thriving children is thriving families is thriving children. And Jana pointed it out, without all of those, you're not going to have a thriving community. So that's kind of where we're at. So.
Thank you, Joe. Mary, any more clarification that you'd like around that? Or I know we have some new comments in the chat box to bring up. Okay, so Jackie has stated local availability for early childhood mental health. So that's a great one. Pam is also saying exploring a cooperative that elevates our providers and increased pay and or benefits. Need night and weekend childcare. Pete is saying, and you know, in 5 years, kind of his dream, his vision is affordability would not be an issue to any family in Keith County. Michelle, within 5 years, greater access and understanding of the desperate need for early childhood mental health services and improved responses to childhood trauma as a community. So another great mention around mental health. Ken is saying financial support supplied directly to child care workers by government. Pam has shared with us that our state average for number of families with 2 parents that work is 75%, and Keith County's average is 80%. So we need to provide the opportunity for quality licensed care for all children. And Elise is also saying continued development of our library services and other literacy efforts for young children. And Heather is also sharing this awareness of the importance of quality early childhood experiences is happening across the nation. In 2020, the first early childhood educator won this national honor given by the Council of Chief State School Officers. She teaches as a preschool teacher that is located inside a retirement community in the small town of Winfield, Kansas. Both intergenerational and innovative, the 2020 Teacher of the Year. Beautiful idea of putting in the early childhood into an assisted living or some sort of retirement community. I love that idea, and it's a great idea. Any questions or anything that we want some more clarification around? And again, we are stating all of this, and we will be talking about next steps here in just a couple of minutes, but want to see if there's any questions from any of you or additional clarification that you would like to provide. Any questions? We do have a question. Are there parenting classes being offered within the community to help support families? Would there be anybody online that would be able to help answer that question?
Nicole, this is Cheryl Roche, and what we desperately are in need of more what they call circle of security parenting facilitators, and I'm happy to report that we have 2 people currently going through that facilitation training. It's a great program that I know that some of you might have participated in already, but that's a great parenting class. If at one time we did have parenting classes offered through Region 2, I am able to facilitate several different types of parenting workshops depending on the interest, and we can certainly try to get some of those going if there's interest in that respect as well. Jennifer has weighed in on the comments that Rooted in Relationships does have a parenting piece to their work. And so last year they were unable to have their parenting workshops due to the craziness of COVID-19, but that is something that they have done in the past as well. Something that I think that we didn't maybe touch on that I think is really important, and what I've seen a huge change over time in my tenure as an early childhood professional is that we desperately need, as it's been mentioned in the comments, support for mental health for our youngest children. But one thing that I think we sometimes forget about is the parents. I'm not sure that all parents are getting the information and the support they need to be the best parents that they can be. And I'm not sure where that breakdown is, but I've seen a big, huge change in parenting over the last 40 years. And I'm sure those of you that are in the school system would echo that. So just helping parents know what is appropriate development and how to engage and interact with their children. As Michelle said, the serve and return of conversation. Kids are not talked to anymore. And those children that come out of families where they hear lots of conversation and words, they are so much more ready for school, formal school, when they hit that age. So just some of those things I think if we could provide for parents would be really wonderful.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl. Pete has asked a really great question, and I'm going to ask. I'm going to phone a friend on this one. So Pete is asking, are there any Nebraska communities similar in size to Ogallala, Keith County, that would be considered a model for early childhood development? I'm going to call on my friend Jana Jensen with the Nebraska Community Foundation, and maybe just to have her share what kind of the communities that she's aware of. There is a lot of effort across the state, especially right now, around early childhood. So Jana, if you want to kind of share your experiences and what you know with other communities.
I would say Red Cloud is probably one of the communities to look at closely, as well as Shickley, who has a joint effort with their school. And then Albion right now is kind of leading the charge with, they just broke ground for what they're calling Boone Beginnings, which is an early childhood development center. So, and there's an effort in Norfolk as well. So there's efforts all across the state that are starting and that we're learning about, and they're certainly willing to share information openly with anyone. So those are a few.
Thank you, Jana. Kayla has made a comment that she does want to speak on the mention of night and weekend childcare that was brought up. Kayla, I may just kind of turn it back over to you if you want to just speak on that a little bit more.
Well, I know I'm kind of backtracking, but from the childcare aspect, through all the meetings, focus groups I've ever gone to, everyone always mentions nights and weekends. Like, that is so essential, which I agree. People need that. But we do have one provider who is amazing, and she participates in rooting relationships too. She offers nights and weekends, and she currently has 1 night child and 3 weekend children. That's it. If I was looking into that, I want to do it I want to offer those hours for that little of children, if that makes sense. It doesn't. So the children are going somewhere, not sure where, but they are getting care, I don't know, maybe from grandparents or a friend.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kayla. We're seeing some more comments, and maybe Ken is asking, maybe if Jana, would you be able to speak more about the Red Cloud example and their efforts there? Oh, okay. Jana just said that she'll get more information about Red Cloud to us, or to Ken.
Better
so
keep going.
yeah. All right. Well, so I think what we're going to do, so we again are capturing all of this, and we are going to put this into themes. I think, Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of share next steps. You already have a date in mind for a follow-up session to really kind of take these dreams, these themes that we're hearing tonight, to really be moving forward with some of these areas.
Absolutely, thank you. Wonderful session tonight, you guys. There is so much information sharing. I think that's the first step, is to help build that awareness around what's already happening with early childhood development, so we know where we're moving forward from, right? So thank you so much for taking the time to hop on. As Nicole mentioned, we're capturing all of this. We're recording the session, saving the chat. I'm going to group these responses into themes. So when we come back on October 13th, we will have certain themes that we can discuss and start to prioritize areas of focus in those themes, and start to develop action items and steps, and identify the roles that we all play to help these visions come true, to those big dreams that we talked about, to make them a reality. So I'm going to share a link in the chat box with you, but you're also, everybody that attended is also going to get a summary of this conversation tomorrow, along with a link to watch the recording, and a RSVP link to the next early childhood discussion that will be again October 13th, the same time. So we have created kind of a landing page for community vision planning sessions on our KCAD website. Very easy, www.kcad.org. You can click on the community vision planning link. All the information so far to this point will be here, and we will be sure to share that information with you so you can track our progress as we move through these community conversations. Nicole will join us also for session number 2 to help us create that asset map with these themes and move us forward through this process. So Nicole, if you have anything to add, we can close.
I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to have this really important conversation. Wish we could all be in person, but I think this worked out really well, being able to connect virtually. And thank you for those who are participating in cars and on the road and holding babies. I love it. So glad that you could all join us tonight to have this really important conversation for Keith County. We do have a question from Pam asking about, can participants add their thoughts and ideas to that link post meeting? So if maybe there are folks who are, additional ideas have generated from them after maybe watching the recording or seeing the notes, I want to encourage you to reach out to Mary and to Pam, or even to myself, and we want to make sure that we capture that. So if you have additional ideas around kind of what looks and feels different in 5 years around this, please continue to share your ideas. So I'll just end on that. And yeah, thank you again for all of your time this evening and participation.
Thank you, everyone.